Today, productivity has become an individual pursuit.
Rahaf Harfouche. She's a Canadian you may never have heard of before, but you may be able to relate to the message she's spreading. We work too damn hard. And in the 21st century, the way our very jobs are changing, from the factory floor to the knowledge economy to who knows, we're on a fast track to trouble. Consider this. Harfouche first made a name for herself a decade ago, volunteering on Barack Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. That experience drove her first book, and since then, she's become a New York Times best-selling author, traveling the world, studying and speaking about the impact of technology on people, on culture, and increasingly on how we define work and how work defines us. But fast forward to 2016, her life came to a crashing halt. She was paralyzed by burnout. And as a self-described creative who could no longer create, she had to ask herself the question, now what? Her soul-searching led to her latest book, Hustle and Float. And I sat down with Rahaf Harfouche recently in Toronto. Rahaf, very nice to have this chance to chat with you.
I'm so excited to be here.
So what was it then? I mean, you talk about kind of hitting that breaking point. In the moment, I mean, as you were overworking, did you know, did you realize it was unhealthy, that it was having a harmful impact on you?
For a large part of my working life, it was very much focused around this idea that I had to do more and more and more and more in order to reach this success. And for me, what ended up happening was I ended up overworking and then having and suffering from severe health setbacks, burnout, insomnia, not being able to eat, not being able to sleep, losing my hair. And once you hit that physical wall, you're like, okay, well, clearly this strategy of I'm going to outwork everyone else by doing it harder and longer, that's not getting me closer to where I want to go. And more than that, it's risking everything that's important to me, which is not only my mental and emotional and physical well-being, but my ability to generate ideas that I need to do to keep paying my rent and to keep being able to work.
You may have been too stressed at work to hear, but the World Health Organization recently added burnout to its classification of diseases as, quote, an occupational phenomenon. Burnout is not new, of course, but it's more widespread than ever and hitting people of every generation. With us now for more, in Paris, France, via Skype, Rahaf Harfouche, Executive Director of the Red Thread Institute of Digital Culture and author of Hustle and Float, Reclaim Your Creativity and Thrive in a World Obsessed with Work. And here in our studio, Dr. Kati Kamkar, clinical psychologist with the Work, Stress and Health Program at CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Toronto. And Kati, it's good to have you back on the program. You've been here many times before. Ms. Harfouche, good to have you on the line all the way over in Paris, France. Let me just, as we start here, this is only as of May 28. The World Health Organization added this checklist of things to the occupational phenomenon of burnout. Feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, or reduced professional efficacy. Dr. Kamkar, can you explain to us what is particularly new about this new understanding or definition of burnout?
I am so happy that we are finally really giving more importance and acknowledgement and recognition to burnout. Because when we talk about, especially in terms of the costs associated with mental health in Canada, $51 billion annually, which we know are going to increase by the year 2021. And a large bulk of it is really associated with mental health disabilities, absenteeism, reduced productivity, short-term and long-term care disability. What we really need to look here at what are the modifiable factors that are contributing towards the exacerbation or maintenance of any mental health problems, including physical health problems, but anything that has a strong impact on our work. Burnout is certainly a key one. It has a significant impact on our health, physical health and mental health, and definitely our work performance. And as you mentioned, these are the key indicators of burnout. When we talk about exhaustion, so it's really the emotional, psychological, physical, psychological, especially psychological call emotional exhaustion, the sense of depersonalization or cynicism. And that's what's interesting about this, is when we start losing our sense of self, when we start having emotions or thoughts that we feel are not necessarily connected to the self anymore. And then also there's this growing distrust of others. So it's really around that feeling that others are maybe to get at me. So, but especially whenever there's distrust that takes place, we can certainly imagine the growing interpersonal relationships that might also occur.
Let's see if that checklist jibes with the experience of Rahaf in Paris, France, because you experienced burnout firsthand. So how much of what Dr. Kamkar just had to say jibes with your understanding and experience of it?
Oh, so much of it. It's as though she was reading a list of my own symptoms. I mean, I also have to add, I experienced myself extreme physical symptoms. I had hair loss. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I had a difficult time doing cognitive tasks. And the best way to describe it would be, if I tried to think about something or do something work related, it would be as though I was reaching into an empty space. I genuinely thought that I had damaged my mental capacity to think and problem solve and create permanently. That's how intense and terrible it was during the time. And
what do you think brought it on?
I just overwork, an unrelenting pressure to constantly produce, to be busy, to justify every moment of your day, to broadcast how important you are through how stuffed your calendar is, or how many calls you're on, or how many emails are coming in. It's this social narrative where we've almost developed a new cultural language whereby we communicate to each other our worthiness of needing to be at work, our worthiness of our jobs and identities through this posturing, through talking about how tired we are and how overworked we are.
And Rahaf, why did you feel that just sort of dialing it down a few degrees was not an option?
I mean, I think if it was that easy, this wouldn't be a global epidemic. I think often when we talk about burnout, we focus on the physical symptoms and we focus on, oh, people are working too much. And a lot of the research that I have done really focuses on unpackaging the cultural stories that we tell ourselves about success, about hard work. So for many people, it's not just about, oh, work a little less, sleep a little more, take more breaks, but it's having these very intense conversations about self-worth and ego and, again, being worthy, being enough, how people are seeing you and how you see yourself. So it's not as simple as telling somebody, oh, just work a little less hours.
So working hard isn't necessarily working smart, but how does that square with some of the biggest success stories of our time? Steve Jobs, a 14-hour workday, just a normal day. Elon Musk making his bed literally on the factory floor. Bill Gates, Oprah, all icons of a superhuman work ethic.
And the number one lesson I could offer you where your work is concerned is this: become so skilled, so vigilant, so flat out fantastic at what you do that your talent cannot be dismissed.
Regardless of how they get it done, I think most people, the science shows, is that burnout is a real thing and that these models of sustained overwork over a long period of time will catch up with you. There will be people who have heart attacks. You will have depression and anxiety. You will suffer the consequences if you burn out. Burnout is a real physical thing. So I think that it's very misleading to look at these people and say that, oh, well, like, overwork works, they had it done, because I often think the media only shows us one part of the picture. I mean, I go back to the example in the book of Beyonce, where you look at Beyonce and you look at everything that she's accomplished: wealth, fame, power, right? But she herself was so burnt out in 2011 that she had to take an entire year off. And I think many times we talk about the light part, like the very exciting part. We don't talk about the shadows, because when you look at the percentage of articles that were written about her, there was like so many that were written about her work ethic, so many that were written about how hard she works, how long she works, very few that were written about the fact that she had to take an entire year off to physically and mentally recover.
But I feel like there must be a whole subset of people who kind of wear that as a badge of honor too, right? They derive a sense of pride from the fact that they're working so hard.
This is what's the really fascinating thing, is that culturally, the rituals that we've developed around how we talk about work and around how we link our importance to how hard we work, not even just the job that we do, that's not even important enough anymore. It's like not just the job that we do, but how hard and we work at it. Mm-hmm. That goes counter to all of the actual things we need to do to be healthy and to be more creatively prosperous.
Like when you say that, I'm thinking, when you go to a party, what's the first question you ask someone?
What do you do?
What do you do? And so so to what extent then have our identities become so intertwined with work? I mean, you are what you do. I mean, is that kind of what you're getting at here?
Most people are working for the majority of their day, so of course that's going to be the thing that you fall back on when you consider your identity and who you are, because many people at the end of a long day don't have the energy or the time to be able to develop all of these other different parts of their identity because they're tired, because they're working 80-hour work weeks.
So to someone like Oprah, who says, work hard and success will come, you would say?
And my problem with saying work hard and you'll be successful is that when you flip it, what you're really telling people, if you're not successful, then you must not be working hard enough. And I think that's a very sad message, a very dangerous message, because a lot of people, there are people in this country that will work 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. Are they not working hard enough? There are people who will, who on top of working a full-time job have aging parents to take care of, have family obligations, have kids to raise, have all these other things that they have to do. Should they be working harder at their jobs and ignoring all these other responsibilities? To me, this is just a fundamental need to redefine what success is going to look like in a way that's a bit more sustainable, a bit more compassionate. Because many of these people that that we talk about are people who have the benefit of having a lot of support systems in place, of having the money to be able to maybe hire extra staff, hire nannies, hire cooks, travel by jet, all of these things that enable them to get more things done. I think the average person can't look at that as a standard and then feel guilty and shame themselves because they're just struggling to make ends meet because salaries haven't risen, because there's wage stagnation, because of all these other economic factors. Instead, we say, no, none of that's a big thing. You should really be working harder. I saw something on Instagram the other day that said, if you're not going where you want to be in your life, have you considered what you're doing between 7 p.m. and 12 a.m.? This is the narrative that I want to fight against. Not working hard, not dreaming big, not sacrificing some things to build important things, but about this idea of what success looks like and what is required for us to get there. I think there's definitely room for improvement.
I think that's a good point to wrap the interview. Rahaf, really nice to talk to you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much.
I'm going to read something now, Rahaf, that the American psychiatrist Richard A. Friedman wrote about burnout in the New York Times, and then I'll get you to react to it after I finish reading this excerpt from his piece. When a disorder is reportedly so widespread, it makes me wonder whether we are at risk of medicalizing everyday distress. If almost everyone suffers from burnout, then no one does, and the concept loses all credibility. Of course, we must do all we can to detect and treat serious mental illness, like depression and drug and alcohol abuse. But let's not medicalize everyday stress and discomfort as burnout. Okay, you want to react to that?
I mean, for me, I took the opposite view when I saw how global this epidemic was. It signified to me not that, not that it reflects that we're minimizing someone's mental conditions, but actually the opposite, that the systems that we have created around work, and my research particularly focuses on creative work and knowledge work, that if so many people are signaling that they are in distress, then to me, that is a huge red flag that we as a society and that organizations themselves and leadership teams need to actually start looking at the design of the system, the cultures of the organization. And that is, I think, a conversation that we need to be having more. It worries me to see people dismiss it because I know that when I was experiencing my own burnout, you feel ashamed. We have a culture where hard work is a symbol of your ability to own your role, of your ability to do a good job. And so if you can't do that job, if you can't hustle hard enough, you feel a lot of shame because people tell you, or the message that you get culturally is that it's your fault, that you're not working hard enough. You just need a better system. You just need inbox zero. You just need a different framework, instead of actually saying, wait a minute, there's something fundamentally wrong with the way we're structuring and designing cultural and the way that we're talking about work within our everyday lives.